Well, hey, y'all. Welcome to Dear Jamie. I am working on a new intro and all kinds of things, but for tonight, I'm just going to read it to you before I get it all recorded, and then we're going to dive in. Okay, are you ready for this? Welcome to Dear Jamie, the place where stories unfold, secrets find a voice, and conspiracies whisper just loud enough to make you wonder. I'm Jamie. Think of me like your favorite advice columnist with a little more wine, a little more honesty, and a lot less judgment. Each week, I read letters from people just like you, the heartbreakers, the brokenhearted, the curious, the quietly complicated. You'll hear real questions, anonymous confessions, and the kind of deep, unspoken truths we've all carried a little too long. And just when you think that you've heard it all, we'll end with the twist. I'll walk into the weird, the conspiracy corner, because sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, and sometimes it's hidden on purpose. Isn't that exciting? I love that. I've been working hard on this, y'all. So, last week was the very first kickoff of the Dear Jamie podcast, and I'm so grateful that y'all joined in. Tonight is episode 2 of the Dear Jamie podcast, and I have some scoop for y'all. And I just have to say that a lot of people have reached out, and if you didn't hear your story tonight, it doesn't mean that you won't. It just means that I had to pick and choose and try to tie things together, yet keep a good variety. And I'm really excited to share with you this evening. So I have some things printed out, some things on my phone, and I promise that I'm going to get better at retelling all of this. But it is officially a podcast, and I'm just so excited and grateful that y'all are here. Let me open up a few things here so I can get myself all coordinated and ready, and be sure that I'm all pulled together. Our first email, our first story I'm gonna tell you, comes, and we would like to keep things anonymous on this one. All right, dear Jamie. I thought I might write to you, and between you and your internet family, y'all might be able to help me gain a little clarity. I married young, had my first child at 20. By the time I was 33, I had 2 kids and was a widow. After my husband died, a good friend of his was always around helping around the house, helping with the kids, etc. And eventually, we fell into a rhythm, and after 3 years, we had a child of our own. Time passed, and now the youngest is fixing to graduate. Life has by no means been bad, but the problem is, I'm not in love. Not in love with him. I do love him to death as a person, and I really don't want to hurt him, but I just feel as something is missing. I've told myself I would wait until the kids were all grown before I made any decisions, and that time has about arrived. Financially, I've always kept things separate. I held on to my home even when we were living in his, and bank accounts have been kept separate, so finances have not come into the equation. We've never been well off, but we've always had enough to get by and would each be able to make it together or separate. It's not even that I want to find anyone else. I just feel like I need to have time and space to figure out who I am because I feel I lost myself somewhere down the road while I was just trying to survive. So the question is, what would you do in my shoes? Sincerely, just a gal wondering if there's life out there. Just a gal. I think when I read between the lines here, I hear someone who is lived a life of raising children and maybe didn't even give herself time to grieve. You know, married young and a mom at the age of 20, and then by 33 had 2 kids and was a widow. Then her husband that just passed away, best friend, sort of like moves into the scenario or the circumstances, and they just go about doing life together because it's comfortable, and then they have a kid. And I get in the back of her mind is probably always wondering the what if. What if I did this, or what if I did that, or what if I would have taken time? And maybe it's not that really, that she doesn't want anyone else. It's just that maybe there's a curiosity of what else there is, and that might not even be in another person. It sounds like she doesn't even didn't have time to be her or to focus on her. And like I said, like some of that may be grief that is built all into there that she just never gave herself time to do. Because if you are doing life with someone and married and then you're a widow at the age of 33, and then somebody steps right into that role and you never gave yourself time to like even realize what life is like alone. I think that I've always said that you don't know anybody until you live with them. But there's a lot to be said about that, about even knowing yourself, because when did this person ever get to live with just herself? And I'm not saying that she should step out of her relationship or anything like that, but maybe she needs to have just an honest conversation with him of like, I feel like I missed out on so much life. I raised kids, I lost a husband, and then you stepped in. And maybe it's just like a pause of, not again, not in their relationship. Maybe it's time to just figure out like, what do you want to do? And it sounds like this man just went into a rhythm, and I don't know if he like I would love to hear his side of the story, to hear the other side of like he felt obligated and maybe he's not feeling the connection either, or is his best friend's wife that he felt the need to step in and take care of the kids and all of those things. Like, I guess the other side of it really matters in this angle. But on the same token, I don't know if this person realizes or recognizes that finding someone that is a good human and that has done the things that this man did is rare. And that the dating world and relationship world and the experience world is scary and is so dynamically different than the time that she missed, that she won't be able to actually replace that time or relive all of those moments or all of those things. But maybe he's feeling the same way too, and maybe they both needed adventure or a change of pace, or to really just talk about like, what is it that you're missing? And if you don't know, then let's go try things together or separate. It's okay. But I just think about like today versus, let's call it 40 years ago. The world is different. Men are different. Women are different. Independence is a norm at this point in time, yet finding a companion that can maintain that independence while being supportive throughout the whole piece. I've always, I believe in being in love and loving someone. I also believe in liking and loving, or not liking but loving. I believe in all of those feelings, and feelings are, you're validated in your feelings around that. But I think having a realistic conversation and being able to say, I'm missing something, or at least I feel like I'm missing something because this is what we've done for so long. It's going to be a hard tiptoe around the other person's feelings. But again, I wish I could hear his side of the story. And maybe that's what she needs to ask for, is, a realistic approach of her side, is the way to approach that, but also to ask for his side. And don't get me wrong, men and women are dynamically different. Men, they love routine and the comforts and the consistency. And it's not that women don't like consistency. It's just every once in a while, I think that the reason that we move the furniture around, or that we cut bangs in our hair, or that we try new recipes or take a different road home, is because we are, as women, just naturally curious about What else? It's the same as a relationship or going to a restaurant. I mean, same as a couple that goes to the restaurant. I believe there's a lot of people who show up and order the same thing from that restaurant every single time, and then the other half might be someone who reads the menu every time and goes try something new each time. But I think it's important to be able to recognize who you are in those small spaces, and then be able to dive down deeper and have an honest conversation. I see a lot of people saying the same things, that it could be a mutual decision. And then a lot of people are giving the warning of the grass is not always greener. Listen, we're all broken in some way. We all have chapters in our stories that we don't read. And then we also have curiosities. And I think that there might be a testament to their relationship to be able to just be open and honest about what else. So thank you for writing that, gal. Wondering if there's life out there. There is life out there, and you may not have to go at it alone, but it's also okay if you do. All right. Next up, I met my second husband before my daughter was a year old. 1970. We ended up going to Australia in 1973 because he was in search of wartime Harley Davidson so he could make a fortune. He just knew the old timers were there and they had them stashed in their barns all over the place. Well, they might have, but they weren't going to sell them to us. We were the Yanks and they hated us. We came home in 1976 in time for the bicentennial. We got divorced in 1980, and he would pop up in my life from time to time. He was the love of my life. No one ever measured up to him. He contacted me when I moved to Oklahoma and asked me to be able to come and visit. He was thinking about going back to Australia. I got all giddy, thinking we would get back together and go back to our life, even potentially in Australia. Well, not on your life was that the reason he was coming to see me. I heard from him, and the next thing I heard from him was that he got married to someone else, someone who could help him get a visa and be able to get back to Australia. Clearly, I was not his path. I was hurt. I told him to bugger off and never contacted me again. Then, as several years passed, all of a sudden, he shows up, divorced, saying that he was truly sorry. So we started FaceTiming, cheaper than phone calls, and continued that for several years. Everything was fine, and we chatted twice a week. I really put my life on hold because, after all, he was the love of my life. Everything really started to feel like it was falling into place. He told me about becoming an Australian citizen and working hard for the Aboriginal First Nations community to help them get equality and a voice in the government. Apparently, they don't have one. He talked about going to rallies and writing letters and doing everything that could help those people get a voice. So then we were talking one night about before he left, and he took off on his Harley and went all over the USA. His main stop was going to be the corporate headquarters for Harley Davidson for their 100th anniversary celebration. All kinds of performers were there and were slated, and I even thought that he was going to invite me. After all, he's back in the US from Australia for a very brief trip, and we've been spending all of this time together on FaceTime. Turns out, he didn't ask me to go. But when I asked him about all of the performers, he mentioned everything was awesome, but when Elton John came on, he left. I would have been so excited to see this act, all of it, and I even told him so. And he said, well, you're not going to like this. But when Elton John came on stage, we all got up and left, along with hundreds of other hardcore bikers. I just couldn't believe it. You worked so hard for the Aboriginal people. I've never known you to be cruel or racist or homophobic. And here you are, standing up and walking out with a whole group of people going completely opposite of what I thought that you stood for. After a few harsh words and giving him lame excuses, I hung up. He's never called back, and it's been several months now. I keep expecting a letter to arrive any day now, pleading to be forgiving. What would you do? After 50 years alongside him, never in a million years did I expect this to be the reason that it all ended. There's a lot to unpack here. And when I read between the lines, it probably wasn't the fact that he stood up and walked out on Elton John that upset you so much that you don't want to speak to him. That probably was icing on the cake and was probably the reason, in between all of the other things, that just gave you the courage to say, enough's enough. This man didn't put you first. This man didn't treat you like you were the love of his life. In fact, he went back to you every single time to use you to fill time and space. And that hurts my heart for you, actually. It actually, and I feel like so many of us have been in that situation, whether it be in a job or in a relationship or even with family. You give, you're the constant, you're the steady and true and the always there. And you feel it in the back of your mind that things aren't right and that they aren't treating you the way that you deserve to be treated. And even though you have these hopes and desires that one day they'll wake up and see you, and in reality, you got to see him in a way that took away that love of your life feeling. And I don't mean to put down the feelings that you've had all those years, but this may be a blessing to finally be able to disconnect and to finally be able to cut ties and to be able to see the person that he's been showing you he was for so long. And I know that that hurts. All 50 years is a long time, especially when no one else measured up or compared, and that you gave that person so much of your time, your greatest currency, that he took up space in your mind and in your heart. And I'm sorry for you for that, but I also feel like it's the first time that you've been able to see the other side. And it's probably okay that he doesn't write you a letter, or okay that he doesn't call. And I hope that just having the courage to write this email to me and to be able to put this out here and ask of just for help, just for clarity around it, or to bounce something off of someone who I don't know the backstory or all of the ins and outs or all of the other things in those 50 years. But reading this email and reading in between the lines, what I see is someone who's mad that they invested so much of themselves into someone. And it really was the final straw when he showed you who he was. I hope that if that letter comes, that you don't even read it. You're worth so much more. And that thing of being able to stand up and to walk out on something because of what someone's personal life choice is, when you're there to listen to their music and enjoy a moment, that was your sign. And you're worth more. And I hope that you remember that. That one's pretty heavy, and I don't think it was meant to be that heavy. But I thank you for taking the time to write to me and to share that with me. And I hope that you find peace in the fact that you told me all of that. And I just said it back to you, what you were already saying to me. All right. Next story. This one's a doozy, y'all. I have an unexplained situation that happened to me that I'd like your take on. People are going to think I'm a wackadoo, so please keep me anonymous. Dear Jamie, my husband and I have talked about swapping sides in our bed a few times, but we've always stuck with our own side that we're used to. I always go to bed first, and I woke up one night feeling my husband standing next to the side of the bed. He tugged at the covers, and I said, "Do you want to swap sides?" He didn't say anything, but I scooted over to his side and lifted the blankets to let him in. We sleep naked, and he was cold. I could feel his super, super cold body up against mine, but I didn't mind. He spooned me, and I tried to warm him. He felt bigger in the body, taller than normal, but his arms enveloped me, and I felt so protected in his arms as we fell asleep. I had the greatest sleep of my life that night. In the morning, I was confused to be back on my side of the bed. I asked my husband, "When did we switch sides again?" He said, "What? We've never switched sides." He said when he came to bed, I was over on his side, but he managed to still get in. He never got behind me on my side. I thought back to that night before and recalled his silhouette against the window and realized who I let in my bed just looked different, and I keep trying to remember his face, but I couldn't see it. I remembered seeing him and feeling him. It scared me so much that for weeks I made my husband come to bed at the same time as me. I suddenly felt afraid and alone, afraid to be alone, especially in our room. I know people will say I was dreaming, but I honestly don't believe I was. What are your thoughts? Yeah. Wow. Right? It's easy to take the "you were dreaming" path, but it's very clear that she believes that this happened and she could feel it. And I've had a lot of dreams in my life, and I can remember a lot of dreams, but I don't remember a physical feeling in a dream. I've had emotions. I've cried. I've woke up scared, woke up sweaty from panicking. I even woke up laughing. But I don't remember the feeling describing that she has or had, and the fact that she couldn't hang it up, and how unexplained it is that it's still haunting her. Let's be honest, it's haunting her. It's on her brain. Was it a ghost? A spirit? I don't know if you believe in all of that or if she does. I had a similar situation happen as a young child, not like this. I had a similar situation that would happen, and it happened frequently. And I've not told people this, but I was 5, and there was always someone that stood in the corner of my room. Every night when I went to sleep, they would stand there and watch. And I remember screaming for my mom a few times, and that person telling me to shh. I guess I got older and it stopped, or we moved, or whatever the case is, but I can remember it like it was yesterday. I have no idea what it was, but it sounds so familiar. And obviously, I like people are asking, like, was she drinking? What to think about? But the feeling of it is something like her description of the feeling of how cold he was and how he enveloped her and how she had the best sleep of her life is wild, is absolutely wild. Some people say maybe it really was her husband who came into bed and maybe he was sleepwalking. Maybe. It would be a really mean trick to be playing on her if that's the case, though. And kids do. I see somebody says kids tend to see spirits and ghosts and things like that. You're right, they do. But I think it was definitely something. And if it was that real to her, you can't discredit that and say you were just dreaming. It's unbelievable that she thought it was her husband, though. And I've been in that confusion state where Even as an adult, if you've gone to bed and you're in that deep sleep, the one where, like, you feel like you're falling and you even catch yourself and wake up in those moments, and because you're so exhausted and you're confused when something abrupt happens in real life to wake you up. It's kinda crazy to think about, you know? There are a lot of people who have experienced things like this, especially after people have passed away, and I have heard stories around that as well of, people being visited by the people they lost, and I see other people talking about having similar encounters, and maybe she did need comfort, maybe it was a stressful time in her life. It's very interesting. Hopefully, it wasn't somebody who, like, snuck in their house and, like, literally climbed in bed with her and then snuck back out, because that also goes into a space of, like, take away all of the spirit and ghosts and the maybes. What if it was a real person that just was, like, lurking in their house? It would freak me out too. It would make me wonder and be afraid to be alone, double, triple check all the things. Yeah, definitely something to think about. Donna says, I have sleep paralysis and I swear it's real. I've never heard of sleep paralysis, but I will absolutely look that up. Melissa says, if it was a real person, her husband surely would have saw him. I have lived in homes. So, like, when I was younger, we lived in a ranch style home that had a basement. And the basement had its separate entry. So I had a stepbrother that lived downstairs, and we had a big, huge entertainment room downstairs with a bar and all the things. And at that point in time, we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and there absolutely could be someone that came in the basement without anyone upstairs ever knowing anything. So, unless we know this person's home and all the things about it and where they live, like, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. Maybe it was a real person. Maybe we're all thinking about this in the most wrong ways. The other thing, even out here, when we when we bought the JL South, the neighbors told us about a circumstance where they woke up and there was a naked woman in their refrigerators, like standing in their kitchen in their refrigerator, looking for something to eat. And it could happen anywhere. And that was a real human being and a real real event that happened, not going down the paranormal space. But I feel sorry for this person because that is haunting. And I think that your curiosity to know will always be there, and maybe if it was a spirit or something along those lines, that it'll revisit you and give you an explanation as to how. I would be curious as to how long ago it happened, and then, has anything similar happened? Do you find yourself looking at faces, walking in public, of trying to match that face, or did you really see your husband's face? I don't know. I have so many questions. That's what I know. Teresa says maybe hypnosis would have the answers. Maybe. Maybe. I just think, like, if I was her, yes, it would freak me out, but I would always be longing for the answer and longing for that to happen again so I could ask the questions. Absolutely. Okay. We're going to move on to some secrets. And some of these are heavy. Some of these are spicy. But I have to give thanks to the people who were brave enough to share and to be able to put themselves out here. Um, I am working on the website it's called dearjamiepodcast.com. And in the dearjamiepodcast.com will be submissions that you're able to submit your stories or your secrets or the conspiracies that you want to talk about. But tonight's secrets, here we go. I was a bridesmaid at my best friend's wedding last summer. Everything was beautiful. The champagne was flowing, you know. Her older brother, who I had not seen since we were like 14, suddenly reappears and is now a man, like a real man. I'm regretting my makeup choices at this point in time and really thinking through all of the things about the way I look because holy cow, one thing led to another and we hooked up in the coat check room. Like during the reception, my best friend has no idea. I still feel bad, but also 10 out of 10, no regrets. Quite the secret. And one that you can't tell. I'm guessing you can't tell anyone else because it was her best friend, her best friend's brother. Mary Lou says, "Oh, Lord, Lord, Lord." Crystal says, "Do not tell her." I agree. I always look at things like this, okay? If you decide to tell her, if you make the decision to tell her, what are you gaining besides personally getting it off of your chest? That's all you're gaining by that. You're not gaining a friend that's going to trust you, a friend that, and what's the outcome for the person you're telling and the other person that's part of it? Because it's her brother. It's not like they're going to disown him from the family. No, what's probably going to happen is she's going to be mad at you. Maybe. Maybe she already knows. But I don't think that there's any benefit. I don't think there's any benefit to telling her. And it's not that I feel like it was wrong because she doesn't say like I was in a relationship or he was in a like any of those things, but it's pretty taboo. You know. I think that one you just like hold on to. You don't you shared it here and hopefully this was enough to be able to get it out there. But Kathy says, wait 20 years and tell her. Like when you're in the nursing home together. Maybe. It all depends on the background, Like, who knows what the circumstances are around this? We get very brief information about it. And I just don't see like the win or the benefit of telling that person in my mind. And I see that most of you agree. Other people are like, it's eventually going to come out. It may, but it doesn't mean you need to like go down the path of it and like throw it out there. You could just like, if it was one time, you can function like it didn't happen. It's okay. It's okay to just take that one and just tuck it away. Just tuck it away. All right. I have a few more and they're on my phone, so give me a second here to find them. All right, dear Jamie, I faked a reference to get my dream job. I got it. I'm living it and I'm loving it. But every day I live in fear of someone finding out. But I also know that I'm killing it at this job. Was it really wrong? The thing is, I've always thought that in a scenario where you're asked to provide references, it would be really crazy for someone to give you a bad reference. Like for some, like if I'm applying for a job, I'm not going to list people that I know don't like me. I'm only going to list people that I know are going to speak highly of me. So it would be really strange. Meaning, so like you don't expect to call a reference and hear negative things in there, I guess is what I'm saying. And if you're doing great at your job now, it's not like they're going to go check your references now that you're already working at that job. I think that's another one that you just like let it go. Just let it go because they're not going to check into those things later if you're already working there. And I don't even know if most companies do call references because, again, nobody's providing negative references. You're actually more likely in the professional world to hear the truth from the previous employment places that they reach out to than the references that you list. So I don't find that to be like too terrifying, and I certainly wouldn't lose sleep over it because if you're already at the job and you're doing great, like, prove yourself, and that should be enough. I don't know of jobs that go back to check references later or need to talk through that or anything there. Like, own what you're doing and maybe don't do that again. List references that are real. So, we'll let that one go. Okay. Hold on a second here. I have a few more secrets to share. I have a few that I want to save, and I'll tell you about this in a minute. We're gonna do a second round of the Dear Jamie podcast on Saturdays, and the Dear Jamie podcast on Saturdays is where we're going to reserve the scandalous, most outlandish, 100% adults only material. So Saturdays, we will be getting scandalous Saturdays where we're gonna really get into those because some some are a little bit, they're a little bit okay. So I'm sorting through some of those that came that I was like, ooh, they're a little much without giving the full warning. Um, so give me a second here to just give me a second here. All right. This one's a little heavy. This actually comes from a man, and I'm allowed to say that. I'm married with kids. Sometimes I think about walking away, not because I don't love them, but because I don't love myself. I read that one and I wasn't sure if I wanted to share it because it's pretty deep. And when I think about that, I think that there are many people in my own life who have chosen to walk away. I think that there's other people that I know that also um, feel like that they're incompetent or that they're not providing enough or all of those things. Um, but when I think about someone that wants to walk away and says that they don't love themselves, I think that that's a person who is struggling probably with deep-seated things from their past. Maybe it's things that they handled, as a child and saw their own father doing or their own mother doing, and sometimes that requires some therapy and you know, some inward discussions and ways to look at things. But depression is real, and I absolutely get the feeling of not wanting the people you love to see you that way. And when I read between the lines on that one, that's what I hear. And I think that it's worthy of saying that you're enough and that your family doesn't see you that way, even though you do. And that walking away as a whole is generally not the answer. Taking a moment to be able to figure yourself out and to get yourself help and to figure out how can you get to a place where you love yourself and to be someone that you're working on showing your kids that you tough things out and that you work through them and that you seek solutions. There's so much in that. And even though you may be looking at yourself as not enough or however it is that you can't find love of yourself, it would be really helpful to get real help and to be able to not just confess that. And maybe I'm the first step in that confession. But I fully believe that kids need their parents and that your kids can be some of the greatest help to get you through those times as well. And I hope that you do get that help and that you do get to be able to see yourself through your children's eyes. Personally, there's been times in my life where I haven't felt like I was enough. Maybe it was to Xander, maybe it was to work or to my partner. And the greatest thing that I could do in those times is to ask for help and to spend time with the people that loved me to be able to show myself, like, I am worth this. I can do these things. I can be better. And I hope that this person also is able to do the same. Because you are enough and you matter, especially to your kids. Okay, next up. This one's also a little heavy. I'm terrified my friends only keep me around because I'm useful, not because they actually like me. I give and give and give because I'm scared if I stop, they'll leave. I think that what stands out to me in that is it says I'm terrified my friends only keep me around. In the same sense of the woman earlier who had the love of her life. I that man showed her that she wasn't the love of his life. And if you're feeling this way about friends, then they aren't real friends. And that's a really hard thing to swallow. When you're the one who does all the planning and all the coordinating and all the outreach, and you do give so much of your time, and you're always the one that is willing to be there and to put yourself out there constantly, whether it be in money or help or just an ear to listen to. If there's nothing reciprocal ever, I'm not saying that you don't give people grace and that you don't look at the times in their life and think my computer's going to die. That you don't give them some understanding around that. But if it truly is always you, maybe the friends that you call friends don't call you a friend back, even though you're being more of a friend than they ever are. I think that every adult has experienced this before. The older that we get, the fewer true friends are in life. And it's a really hard lesson when you recognize the difference between acquaintances and friends. And it hurts over and over again because the more that you see it, the more that you see all of the things that you're putting yourself out there for, you have to ask yourself, would that person do this for me? And that should never change who you are and your willingness to give and your your ability to put yourself out there. That's who you are. But at some point in time, you have to be able to think to yourself, like, if I didn't send this text, or if I didn't plan this event, or if I didn't show up to help this person move, or even if I asked this person to do something so minute on the other side, would they do it? That's when you can start to regulate how much you give and how much you put yourself out as an inconvenience to you. I am a people pleaser and a giver and a always put it out there, coordinator, planner, all of those things. But it's very rare to have anything reciprocal. And I always feel like if I know that going into it, then I can't be disappointed if nobody reciprocates. But it still hurts because as a person who does give and does do all those things, that it's very rare that you're going to find anybody that's going to feel or act or do the same things that you do. But you still have this piece in your mind of expecting something small, like a text or an invite. Even if you know that you're not going to go to the party, you still want to be invited. It it hits hard, and I'm so sorry that you're recognizing that. But I also know that sometimes being alone is okay, and finding your people and the people that you connect with or that you want to give the greatest gift of all, which is your time to, are people that you aren't able to focus on because you've been investing so much of your time into these people who don't want to give anything of themselves to you, don't value you, don't value the things that you do offer and give. And the final thing I'll say is, like, it's also okay to not have a lot of friends or deep connected friends that you do all of those things for. It's okay. I don't want you to feel like you're less of because you don't have friends, or that anybody measures that, because any honest adult is going to tell you that those connections are real, are rare. But when you find one, it's very real. It's just very, very rare. Y'all, those secrets were all over the place. And as I mentioned, if you want to get into the scandalous side and the juicy stuff and all of the things that are not safe for work or not safe for kids, we'll be doing those on Saturday. Currently, we are going to dive in to the conspiracy part of our show. Now, welcome to Conspiracy Corner, where we peel back the curtain and take a look at what might be lurking behind the headlines, under the surface, or right in front of us. Tonight's theory, the Mandela effect. And if you're already thinking, wait, didn't he die in prison? Buckle up. Have you ever heard of the Mandela effect? It's the name given to a really strange phenomenon where certain people remember things one way and other people remember things a completely different way. There's a lot of theories as to why this happens. Some people take it to the extreme. It is named after Nelson Mandela, for the record. But there's a theory of that we live in a multiverse, which is really extreme. Like, basically, that there's glitches, that they'll call it. If you're in the conspiracy world, you've heard of some of this before. Other people say that we're all crazy. And I'm going to show you some of these Mandela effects because I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to talk about some of them so that I can show you what I'm referring to. the biggest one that I want to dive into is I'm going to ask the question before I show it. Give me 1 second here. So, we all know about the Fruit of the Loom clothing brand, correct? T-shirts, specifically white t-shirts and undies that you bought in a package, maybe. The logo was a bunch of fruit, and I remember the logo having a cornucopia. Okay, so a lot of people remember the Fruit of the Loom with the cornucopia, and Jennifer, tidy whities it was. Yes, I vividly remember folding my dad's underwear, and they were Fruit of the Loom, and it had a cornucopia. Now I'm gonna see here if I can present a screen. Share screen. Share screen. Oh boy, it may not let me. This one. All right. Do y'all see this logo right here on the right-hand side? I'm going to come back. Okay. The left side is how I vividly remember it. Do you know that Fruit of the Loom swears that there was never a cornucopia? That it was just fruit piled up just like that? Alicia says, nope, it was just fruit. T-Fish Wisco says, I remember the cornucopia. Deanne only remembers fruit. I'm telling you, there's so many more, and we're going to go down. Crystal says, like, why lie? There are a lot of people say it's just fruit. Now, I'm not going to go FaceTime my dad and be like, let's see if you got some underwear stashed away from the 90s. We ain't going that far, okay? But allegedly, it never had a cornucopia. All right. Next up. Let's just go with the Monopoly guy. Okay? I realize and recognize that I need to make that bigger. I don't know how to make that bigger without... No, that's going to make me take a picture. Okay. I remember the Monopoly Milton Bradley guy having a monocle, the little glass there on the left-hand side. I remember that because I remember like the little cartoon of him bringing it up to his eye. Always. The eyeglass, the monocle. The world says, half the world says, there was no monocle. That he never had a glass. Where else would I have dreamt up or ever seen anybody have a monocle or even to know that word? Oh, Christy says, nope, never. But Jennifer says, yes, I remember it. So Mr. Peanut also had a monocle. Yes, he did. Sarah says, yep, he had an eyeglass. Crazy, right? So the Mandela effect is like we remember something happening. And I had to laugh the other day because I read something about Bob Barker died. Okay. And what I remember is that Bob Barker, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I remember that Bob Barker died like a long time ago. Like he was the guy, the Price is Right man. And he passed. And that is why Drew Carey took over the Price is Right. Turns out, no, Bob Barker only died last August. Being Nancy says, but did he have a cornucopia? I don't know. Yeah. So here's another one. When you think of Publishers Clearinghouse, the thing you used to mail back in with all the little stamps on it, and then people would win money and they would bring a giant check to your door. I want you to tell me before I ever mention this person who was affiliated with Publishers Clearinghouse, who allegedly would show up at your house. Diane just said it. Who would show up at your house? Ed McMahon. Kathy said it too. Ed McMahon. You want to take a guess at who was never actually a part of Publishers Clearinghouse whatsoever? You are correct. Ed McMahon never, ever was affiliated with Publishers Clearinghouse. So how the heck did we think that or believe that or anything if it didn't happen? Kimberly says he was too. I'm telling you, if you look it up, Ed McMahon was nothing to do with Publishers Clearinghouse. I promise you, it is one of the biggest Mandela effects for me. All right, I'm going to do one more here. One that, okay. There was a book in the 80s of a bear family. A mom, a dad, and I think 3 kids. Yes. Does anybody remember the name to those books? I think it was even a cartoon at some point in time. All right. The Berenstain Bears, right? Some people spell it Stein. Some people spell it Stain. I want to show you. It was originally, the way that I remember it, Berenstain Bears. Stein. The world says it's never been Stein. It's been Stain the whole time. Michelle, I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, if you want to, Diane says, it was not stained. It was not stained. It was Steen. Yes. You want to go down a rabbit hole, Google the Mandela effect, because it's unbelievable the things that I remember very specifically and that you probably remember that are diversely controversial in the way that they are and maybe never have been. It is it is some sorcery, okay? But the rabbit hole is deep on this one, and I encourage you to look it up because your mind is going to be blown. Like really blown. Andy Griffith died and then he died again. Yes, things like that. It's wild when you go down the path and think about like, no. I remember it that way. I'll never forget it because it was part of it. There was a movie, hold on a second, that I was like, no, it happened. Give me a second here. Yeah, it's not going to have a good one on here for me. Do you remember in The Wizard of Oz where Toto says, or where Dorothy says, Toto? Let me get this exactly correct. I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Do you remember that? Because apparently Dorothy never said that. Dorothy said, Toto, I've got a feeling that we're no longer in Kansas. She didn't say it like that. She didn't say it like that. It's wild. And I'm telling you, if you Google the Mandela effect tonight and you go down the path, your mind's gonna be blown. If you find something that like you're shocked by, email me because I just want to know, like the parts. It's just like, I call BS. This is not right. She did not say it like that. Have fun with this one because it's very interesting, the things that we remember and that the rest majority of people remember, and it's not that at all. Did you know that Luke, I am your father, was never said in Star Wars? That's one of the big ones. It's true. That was never said in Star Wars. I've never even seen Star Wars, but that's the most iconic thing that I remember about Star Wars. Yeah. So have fun and do some exploring and let me know some of the craziest ones that you find. And I'll be happy to share some of those. I think that's really neat. I thank you all so much for taking the time to spend with me tonight on Dear Jami episode 2. As I mentioned, we will start Scandalous Saturdays this Saturday, and we will do that at 8 p.m. Central Time. I'll set up some events and be able to share those with y'all, and it's going to be a good time. I'm excited for this. Thanks so much for joining my podcast. This will be up on Spotify in about a week, and I'll look forward to the next Dear Jami. Don't forget, if you have secrets or stories or conspiracies that you want to dive into, email me at Dear Jami Lynn Podcast. No, that's a lie. Email me at jamie@dearjamielynnpodcast.com, and I'll put that up as well on the sites to be able to direct y'all to there. And I will catch you on the next podcast. Good night, y'all. Thanks so much.